Well, that motto that I go by, you know more than you know, is really true. Like, don't just assume that you have got it all ironed out, of who you are or where you're going. There's always more, and we're all multidimensional. You don't have to believe it, but we all are. And so we have these layers of ourselves, not just in this lifetime and possibly other lifetimes, past and future. So getting to know yourself, the darker side is really important, not just feeling that, oh, I don't need to go there, but it's like to take a look at what makes you function, where was that coming from, and go deeply within yourself.
Hello, and welcome back to the Balanced and Blissful Energies podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Hechavarria, and today I am grateful to have Darlene Van de Grift with me. Darlene is a highly respected medical intuitive and multidimensional mediator, timeline architect, medium, artist, and author with close to 40 years of experience. Darlene believes you know more than you know. She's dedicated her career to helping people tap into their innate wisdom and spiritual guidance to explore and heal themselves. Darlene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. So tell me about your how you got to being a medical intuitive, when this all started. What was your path?
I was always, from a little kid, I was always interested in what made humans tick and, what was their body, what was inside their body. My mother had been ill before I was born, was not supposed to have me. And so it was a long relationship with watching her go in and out of the hospitals. And I always wanted to know what that was. Around the time that what was I, 19 or so, when I was 17, she was diagnosed with the medical profession, kept her in the hospital for 6 months, and then they released her saying she had a few months to live. And we found a chiropractor at the time that said, I don't know what I can do, but let me see. It was a 3-year intense program of supplements and coffee enemas and strict diet. And she came out of that as healed herself through that, and she became a healer. So she got her massage license, and she was making $20 an hour, and I was making 4 working in a department store, and it sounded like a good idea for me. And what happened was I fell in love with the body. Like that was I had a curiosity before, but this time I really hands on, the body was speaking to me, and it was just a fascination. I evolved with that and learned applied kinesiology. And then whatever the client needed, like if they were having relationship issues, I went and learned the imago therapy. If they were having nutritional stuff, I became a nutritionist. It was just whatever was the fascination of, oh, I don't know much about that. Let me find out more. And that just led me in, and then eventually into the spirituality of all of it.
So it was a continuous learning process.
It still is.
It still is. Yeah. That's how I feel also. Absolutely. And so when did you start experiencing it more from an intuitive sense rather than taking exactly what the client told you?
Yeah. So the kinesiology was actually that, because many people say one thing and I was doing the applied kinesiology like most people learn, you pump the arms, you do that. And after a few years of that, it just came in. I just have to put my hands on them and the body speaks, right? In a yes and no basis, or it shows me something. That was something that started to happen probably 10 years down the line, of showing me pictures, or there'd be a voice that would say, tell them this. And I'd be going, I'm not telling them. Like I'd be dialogue in my head, like, no, like I'm not saying that. That's rude, or that's, like that's too invasive. They didn't say that. And after about 10 minutes of hearing that voice, I would say something. Well, what happened to you at this age around your father? And then everything would break loose, right?
Mm.
So I learned to trust the information. I learned to trust myself more. I learned to trust the intuition of what was coming in, at least check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, did you have this experience like for yourself in your own life?
As far as that, yes, I've always realized that I could ask my own questions as long as you are neutral. Like you can't have an expectation. You can't have an agenda. You can't have, let me test how long I'm going to be in this relationship and then know that you want to stay in the relationship or you want to be out of it tomorrow. You
Right.
find the answer that you want. So you
Yeah.
really this day, I mean, it's a whole learning curve of
Yeah.
how to trust. For me, it was the kinesiology, of learning how to really listen to the body. And a lot of times I loved being surprised.
Hmm.
Like when the answer would come up and it would be like, wow, like, yeah, that's pretty fascinating, that came up because it wouldn't be anything that I would think about
Right.
or even head towards. But yes, when, so a lot of the work you get, when you're learning kinesiology, I took all the one brain classes and was trained in that. And so you have to go through your own processes in learning it, right? So you do all the clearing. That was fascinating to begin with for me. But when I started channeling, when I started to get information from other areas about channeling and bringing in other energies, that was both, I was raised very religious. So that was a no no. Um, and I thought it was crazy for a while. And that was a whole other adaptation of how to trust that kind of information, not just the body, but when something is telling you something or whatever, it's like how to trust that multidimensional place. But
Yeah.
eventually it proves itself. So you have to kind of go, I guess I have to listen to this.
Yeah. But I understand the trickiness about it. Like there's two levels of trickiness that I want to talk about. One is when you do the kinesiology for yourself. And I do it. I started off, yeah, doing the muscle testing, but then I switched over to using a pendulum because I found that that gave me clearer answers, and I didn't hurt myself with my long nails.
That's a good thing.
So yeah, so I love the pendulum. It always, responds very well to me, but it is absolutely a learning curve of this keeping like a clear mind state, not having an attachment to an outcome. And so what I trained myself to do initially was, and I still basically don't. And when I do, I realize it's a mistake asking about the future. It's so because there's so many potential
Right.
outcomes, and you're also inviting in trickster energy in a way, right? Like, how do you want to play with this?
Yeah. So, you have to take it, the things that I will use as percentages.
Hmm.
Or if I go into the future, I'll say what percentage of this is possible, probable, doable, whatever one seems to show up. And usually it's like, well, it's 100% probable, but it's 50% possible, you know? Uh, yeah.
Yeah,
Or, like where am I on yeah, I use a barometer, an emotional barometer, like where am I with this? And if I'm very steeped in it or whatever, I know, I go, yeah, 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 I'm not paying attention to that one.
right.
Yeah.
That's good. Emotional barometer. Yeah. Yeah. And also asking about how because you're always limited by your own filters. The questions that you ask are absolutely limited by your filters. And so this is why I really appreciate, and you touched on it already, being open to information that's just coming in, right? That you're just channeling in. How did you start first experiencing that? Was that like on your own for your own life, or was it directly with like working with clients?
I think there's two parts to that. The more that I was doing the kinesiology and the more that I was working and the more that I became steeped in the body level, the energy field, it opened for me that way because I'd be getting like information coming from another area. Like a voice would say, do this or say that, right? And it was at that point, I thought it was my higher self, my subconscious talking to me. And I still do think that because I wasn't ready for anything else. And that would give me, that was my first leg of understanding that there's something more that I could take in. It wasn't just what was written on a piece of paper or how I learned the kinesiology. I took it in a very different direction. And then I was learning how to be a inner child assistant, inner child workshop assistant, which is very grueling at times because you go through, if you have 10 clients for the weekend, they could take 3 or 4 hours each to go through whatever they want to go through. So you'd work till midnight and you get up the next morning and you'd work till midnight. And the first weekend, because my mom and I had a business together, we had a 3-story barn, and the therapist said, "Let me just work with your mom and not you. I don't want you both in the same group." But I was fine with that. So she had an experience probably 10 or 15 years before this workshop that she always wanted to know, was it a nightmare? Was it this or that? And they recorded it for her and they asked me to listen to it. And when I listened to it, it was about her being held down by two extraterrestrial beings and she was in terror. And I heard her screaming on the recording and a voice came up inside me and said, "We did not do that." And I'm like, okay, I do this. Is this one of my inner children that are saying we did not do this? So that therapist, a couple of weeks later, I was like, I really need to find out what that was about. And so we went in and I started channeling this being, and his name is Wazar. And he was coming in because there was a group that I had just met that was part of his soul group. And he needed to work through history, which started me on understanding timelines. You can bring in a past life. And if the people are there with you that are around that, you can heal through whatever you have to say, whatever dimensional level that you're in. And so that led me into, I mean, they are on their own evolution. They, meaning the beings that I work with, the multidimensional. So they went from one being to 9 to 12 to 28. And now it's called the evolves, which means that they're one consciousness now, whereas before there was 28.
That you communicate with.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that became a series of books. So that first book is going to be out the end of this year, but it's about timelines in ancient history. It's about how they came together. It's the history of the evolution of humanity and Earth. It's woven into this historic kind of epic journey that this one being that I started channeling has been on through his.
Fascinating. And so would you say that it has some, the work of Bashar, the channels of Bashar? Is it similar to that story or is it a different aspect of it?
How he started channeling.
No. So I guess Bashar is a future
Future.
hybrid version. And so these beings the evolves are they connected to humanity or not connected to humanity?
So they are in their process. They're not different. So it starts out with Wazar, who is that first being, moves into the 9 and the 12. And I got the 28 eventually, like, was it 12 years ago when the 28 came in? But some of them are my incarnations, not all of them, maybe 3 or 4 are my incarnations, both past and future. So but there's other beings in there. Some of them are humans, some of them are not, but they're working with Mother Earth. They're working with the consciousness of her evolution as well as what humanity is going through.
Okay.
And their belief system, their mission, their function is that we have an accumulation of timelines that we've never really handled. So, when karma came in, whenever that was, which I think existed before it was named karma,
Mhm.
that when you would come in, and you did one lifetime that you made a choice that you regret or that you hurt somebody, within another couple lifetimes, you could handle that. But when you've been here 100 times or more, and you don't rectify it and you want to experience everything, including the dark sides of ourselves, right? That at this moment, we have this accumulation of these timelines that is all bubbling forward. So we have the chaos, we have the division, we have the wars, we have a cataclysmic type thing while Mother Earth is going through her evolution.
Mhm.
I mean, we are in the perfect time for all of that to happen.
Mhm.
Said it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It is a for
And it's
everybody, I think. Yeah.
and it's overwhelming also to think of like all of these timelines. So a lot of people have different ways of explaining this. How do you explain it? Is it uh, do you see it as parallel timelines or like stacked time, or is it more linear, circular? Like how do you comprehend it?
Well, I don't think we can.
Yeah. Okay.
We see it like, oh, you start here and you go here, like it's very linear. But when you start to get involved with timelines, you start to realize how they interconnect, how they weave into whatever has happened in that other lifetime. If it's a significant lifetime that is affecting this one,
Hmm.
that when you can go back and you can heal it. You can change something in it. You can't change the death process, but you can, you had 30-year span of that lifetime or more. And there's certain things you can go back, visualize, change it, do the work. And as you change it, then you have to wait and see what happens now
No.
because synchronicity will come in.
Yeah.
You may meet somebody from that lifetime that you had no idea about. So it changes here and then you go back to the other lifetime. So as I see time, I think we need to see it that it's stacked, but it's all happening at the same time because we're in the energetic field, right? So people that tune into the Akashic, it's very
Hmm.
similar to that. Except you're not just getting the information to know, oh, this is the possibility or this is where I could go. You're getting the information and then you do the work to change it.
Right. Yeah. And when you're working, so I've had this happen to me also, where when I work with clients and I ask if this is something related to another, I ask if it's another lifetime, which might be the same thing as another timeline, right? Like,
Could be. Yes.
what's really the difference? Um, and yeah, and then the answer is yes. And then we figure out a way to clear that lifetime, right? We ask for guidance and how we can clear it, etc. And sometimes there's like a feeling, like the client has some kind of sensory feeling in their body,
Yep.
other times not. But
Yep.
what's your experience? Because you said sometimes you just have to wait to see. And I get that you have to just wait to see what shifts in your life in this lifetime.
So that's where the architect comes in because if it's a really big, significant timeline that not only is affecting you in this lifetime, but maybe it has the ripple effect to affect others because maybe it's in Egypt or maybe it's in Lemuria or any of those big timelines, right?
Mm.
So when you correct it back there, for me, this is how it has. So it comes in as many things. Comes in sound, somebody speaking. Sometimes it comes in as a picture a lot of the times, a moving picture. So the more I talk, the more it moves and it shows me things. So it's very organically visible for me. So I'm explaining to the person, oh, this is what's happening here and here and here. Do you want to change that? Do you want to make a different decision? And then it'll shut down. Like it's an automatic, like, oh, you did enough. Now you have to wait. Now you
Hmm.
see what happens here, right? And I tell them, watch your dreams, watch synchronicity as it comes up, watch anything that you watch on TV or, like you're looking at what matches that other lifetime because you're weaving them. You're healing this lifetime, actually, right? For your decisions that you would possibly make that might be different because you're
Yeah.
taking those decisions in the past and bringing them into this lifetime. And then they'll go, okay, so this happened. Here's what changed. Here's my life right now. Somebody came into my life. I had no idea who that was. And then we go back to the other lifetime and say, okay, so where does that fit in? How do you want to change it again? If anything, maybe there's
Hmm.
not more that you want to do.
So it's kind of like tuning in. It's like you tune the energy in one field, lifetime, timeline, whatever, and then you see what ripple effect it has in this one
Yes.
and vice versa.
Yeah. Until
Okay.
you feel like you've because it will weave back in. Like you can't do two timelines like this. You do one and then it'll come back into what happened in that timeline, right? And you go, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so here we're back there again in some way. Here, let's go back in again and figure out if there's more that needs to be done. There is another way that to work with timelines. So timelines can be past lives, yes,
Hmm.
but you can take a behavior or a pattern or a belief system that maybe you've had for a really long time that you can't break. And I look at that as like a necklace with a string of pearls. So the behavior, right, or the pattern is the string, and all the pearls that are on it are lifetimes that you might have had that pattern. So what I ask for is the most prominent lifetime that will, once you heal it, once you move through it, once you acknowledge it, whatever, release it in some way. It's like pulling out the pattern from all the lifetimes. So, because some people go, well, what if I was here like 200 times, and I have the same pattern of betrayal or no abundance or whatever? No, I don't think you have to go through. Maybe there's a couple on there that you might have to go through, maybe, but you find the most appropriate, significant one, then the pattern's released and it doesn't have the weight of it anymore.
Yeah. Wow. Well, if more people could do that, we could improve a lot. Because, and do you think that this type of pattern improvement works also with addictions and things like that are really difficult to break?
It can, I mean, there's processes you can do with the addictions. I find that, I work with several groups of people that work with the psychedelics, and for smoking and alcohol, that a lot. That really helps them to overcome. They can get a different viewpoint. They don't need it in their body, whatever the patterns that were holding that, they seem to rise above it, change it. The chemistry in their brain changes it, and they don't go back to it. Sometimes they just, they do whatever the medication or whatever the plant medicine is once.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I do believe there are ways. I mean, addiction and all that is, it's just a very steeped in, very
Pattern.
pattern,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
believe that we need it,
Yeah.
and who cares? I find that with people with sugar, right?
Hmm.
With sugar, like, yeah, I can go off it, or gluten, I can go off of it and they'll be off of it for a couple weeks and they'll go, I don't care. I don't care. I want my, my roll, or I want my tasty cake, whatever, whatever it is. And then it
Yeah.
starts
Again.
branching out again. Yeah.
Speaking of psychedelics, how do you think that alters the interaction of, so if we're thinking about lifetimes and consciousness, so how does it alter the perception of this consciousness that we are aware of with other timelines?
I think it expands our consciousness, right? It offers us another way of what we have assumed to be the reality that we exist in. It offers us another way of looking at it. Our perception changes. And when our perception changes, everything changes, right? We look at life different. We look at ourselves different. We look at others different. And that does in other timelines, like the clients that I worked with that have done this, a lot of them have PTSD, right? So coming out of war and doing something that really advances them, some of them have bypassed the timelines and they moved right into the spirituality of who they are.
Mm.
How do they want to contribute? It moves the savior part of them that many of them have as military men and
Mm-hmm.
women, that they grow up in whatever atmosphere that is, that they want to save others, they want to help, they want to do. Military becomes the obvious thing for them. And then when they get out of it, they have a really hard time adjusting to how to put that savior piece of them. That's not a negative, right? It's how to bring that about, that they can really still help others. Once they get over their PTSD, it moves them very quickly, sometimes into the spiritual realm where they feel very connected, where they feel like, whether, some of them channel more,
Mm-hmm.
they're accepting of that. Very different way than how they grew up or the military, but they're really open. I think their
Yeah.
heart is so open to want to feel something other than what they were feeling, that they're available.
Yeah. And this is, of course, all done in the setting of yeah, like sort of a curative setting, not a recreational setting, because it can be kind of dangerous in that setting.
No, not
Yeah.
recreation. I need a therapist with you. I'm not in the groups with them, but
Hmm.
I see them after or right before they go in to kind of move things along.
Yeah. 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 I think I mean, very powerful medicine. And it's good that it's being researched again, that it's possible to research it again to be able to learn how we can use this for our benefit.
Right.
Because that kind of change in perception and expansion of how we see things is what we need for, yeah, a better, better getting along. Less war.
Yeah. And the whole perception out there that this is a simulation, right?
Mm,
That we're living in, like none of this is real. It's not about the reality, but everything that is in our life is a reflection of us, right? It's how we perceive it. If you don't like somebody or something or whatever, you better take a look at where that comes from with you,
right.
right? Because it's not just about them. Where does that reside? Where does that originate? Where's the age of cause that is, whether it's this lifetime or another one, that's about that. So that you can keep, it's all about clearing all the time and healing isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. But also enjoying life. I like to
Yeah, I
think.
put joy into it. I try not to use the word work, it's
Right.
not work, but it's balance. Balance
Yeah.
is real important.
Balance, harmony, all those. Yeah. And you mentioned that some of your clients actually start channeling as well. And that's something that's become really like, I don't want to say popular because I don't think it's like mainstream yet, but certainly a lot more people, many more people are channeling nowadays than we ever used to hear of, myself included. Like I had no idea that I would ever start channeling, but it happened. Yeah. So what do you think that this is due to? Like how, yeah, and how can we feel confident doing that and not losing our own sovereignty, free will, you know what I'm saying? That sense of like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
got when I first started bringing in Elie Wazar, which I did that for maybe 4 or 5 years for him to heal whatever that was, and then he brought in more beings to work with, but I didn't like channeling as it was, which I don't think happens as often now. Like, people will channel, but they are here.
Mhm.
Isn't. Nothing's coming in that's taking over their body. That's back in the 70s, 80s, maybe even early 90s, where that was what channeling was. It's not now. It's something different that you can, when you're present, when you're neutral, when you're centered, information, it could be your higher self. It could be not your higher self, but something else. But it only gives us what we can handle and it's not coming in. It's not coming into the body like channeling used to be, which I think was, I mean, like everything's evolving, right? So I think that that's what people thought. I can't be me. It's a perception. I can't be me. If this being or this information is coming in, I have to step back here because I have to, I can bring that in. But now it's more like side by side.
Mhm.
Like I can be here. That's where the mediator for me comes up, right? It's like I didn't want to channel anymore. So I had asked and they were like, well, yeah, we'll train you to be a mediator. So you stay present. We'll show you everything. We'll tell you what to say, but it's still, you're not allowing us to be part of your physical form, which I was fine with.
Mhm.
And so I think more and more people are doing that because we are becoming more awake and we're owning our sovereignty. So what I would tell people is if they are channeling or you're going to somebody that is channeling, be discerning of what you're being told. If there's fear based or rage or anger based, probably not the best place to be, or something's the filtering system there is a little biased.
Right.
So, right. So listen with your heart, not just your head, and say, yeah, that fits, or no, that doesn't. So maybe some things work and some things don't, but there's usually no ego involved. There's no fear level involved. There, no strong anger or anything. If that's there, then it's not coming from a clear space.
Yeah. Or maybe it's coming, I mean, it is an entity that's being channeled, but that's not a very high vibration.
Right.
Right.
I mean, could be there issue. I mean, some people that channel, just like Ellie Wazar came in for me, right? He wanted to clear something. It wasn't about me, and that he had no idea that I would hear him say, it wasn't me. He was like, that was like such a fluke. Like I had no idea that you would ever hear me say that, let alone take action on it.
Mhm.
So I think that and then you have to keep your mind open for that as a mediator as well. If you have beings that have crossed over, not just beings, but family members, or that's something that's really something you do, you see them or you hear them or whatever. Sometimes they come because they want something cleared.
Mhm.
They want to get a message to a loved one. They want to let somebody know something. It's also about that. You need to take that into consideration, that whatever's coming to you may not be just for the group or the person or whatever. It may also be for them. And what
Right,
is it for them?
right. But you can be doing, a service for them as well, right? Yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, energy is energy, right? So if you're helping them become clearer, more whole, more loving, goes back into the field and the ripple effect happens. So
yeah,
we can all have more joy.
yeah, absolutely. So tell me now about because you're also an artist, right? And how have you always been an artist, or how did that, evolve in your life, and how does it involve spirituality?
When I turned 12, I had my sister, who was 6 years older than me, was a valedictorian, and I never kind of got into the academic thing. So when I was 12, I was like, I wanted to learn how to paint. So my mom was like, okay. I went to for lessons for about 3 months and got through my anger and rage about that and broke a couple paintings over my knee because I couldn't couldn't paint what I was seeing, and I was locked into that's all I could paint was this one thing. That's all I could paint. I couldn't paint anything else. It took years, but I also I'm a bit colorblind, which I didn't understand at that time either. So everything that was blue was now green, and everything that was green was purple. And now I know the colors in some way that what I'm seeing is really means this. So I worked through that. It's really my therapy in some way. But when I started channeling, the 28 of them I was what was it, 17, I think it was, when they said, "Take us on the road." And I'm like, "What?"
Mhm,
It's like they wanted I painted a huge picture. It was 3 foot by 3 foot with all 28 of them with the world in the middle, and, symbols around them and everything, and they were like, "Okay." And then I was starting classes in September, and August, the end of middle of August, they said, No, no, you can take that painting, but we want each separate." So every day I would paint one being that would show up, and I had all 28 of them done by the end of that and took them on the road. How it shows up for me now is I'll get a message during the night, or I'll get a picture that I feel like I have to put that down. Like I have to create that. I can't let that go. And that's the driving. It's not a thought process. It's given.
mhm.
I do my best to match what is given.
And do you get, light codes, or, how do you is it or is that actually is it abstract, or is it real form? Do you wanna share any of them with us?
Uh, a lot of times it's real form. Colors for me, interesting enough, are the thing. If I see the colors, I go, yeah. Like purple and yellow together for me are like amazing.
Mhm,
So, if they're showing me anything that has vibrancy and colors and aliveness and it's a being or it's a location or it's whatever, that's my impetus to say, I gotta wake up tomorrow morning, or I've done this too. I wake up in the middle of the night and draw because they just showed me something, or I'm writing something down that says, okay, because I don't want to forget it. So my sleep patterns, some nights I get really good sleep, and other nights it's not about that. I feel like there's always part of my brain that's picking up stuff while another part's sleeping.
mhm. Well, they do say that the middle of the night is when you're most sensitive, right, to messages from the other side.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes they're bizarre, but you pay attention to them.
yeah.
Anyhow,
Are you still seeing clients now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I have a full-time practice plus writing the books plus doing whatever else I can
Wow.
do.
And
Yeah.
do you do remote work or everything
It's
is in
mostly
person?
remote. I'm up on the mountains.
Mhm.
So, it's not a big community up here. So I started doing remote work when I lived in Pennsylvania before I even moved because it came by accident. Like people would call me up and they would go, "Well, you told me this, this, and this today, but I didn't take any notes. Can you tell me what that was about?" And it just came back in, right? So I was like, why do I need to be in front of people?
Uh-huh.
And it's harder, by the way. I found out that it's
You're in
easier.
front.
Oh, yeah. I found
Okay.
out that it's easier because I'm not dealing with, I think there's a part of me that's trying to just dive in and not deal with the energy that's in front of me. And
Mhm.
on the phone works great because I don't
Okay.
have to deal with any of that energy
Right. Of wanting to massage the body or whatever it is that you
or
were doing.
any of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And I wanted to also ask you about, so you've been working with people for close to 40 years. What have you seen in the trajectory of our evolution since then? How have we changed and what do you see for our future?
I think that we've changed drastically since in the last, I would say, 15 years. I mean, all the talk that has been in the field about 2012, the calendar changing. And as we are waking up, because our system, our paradigm that we've been living in for many, many thousands of years, and that's evolved, is falling apart, right? So we are trying to find ourselves in that. So the changes are, like we talked about, more people are channeling, more people are accepting that they're channeling, more people are looking into spirituality and what does it mean to be spiritual? And it's not religious.
Hmm.
Are you connected? Are you taking care of your body better? The one thing that has emerged in the last, I probably knew it before, but probably the last 10 years, is that our body has another consciousness, right? And if you've been abused, if you've been in any way as a child or not have had accidents or surgeries or any of that, the body has a way of, it's our first impact in trauma, right? Is that's what happens with us. And so the body it starts to not trust us. It starts to not trust the decisions that we make. It starts to not trust the people that we choose to have in our lives. And the Ho'opono, you're very familiar with that. The I'm sorry, please forgive
Yeah.
me. It's a great place to start with people to go back to their ages of maybe where they had their tonsils out, or maybe they had a surgery when they were a baby, or, maybe there was abuse, and do that with that specific age coming from your adult, the age you are now, that I am sorry, please forget to the body, not
Hmm.
just to the child, not to the wholeness, not just to the wholeness of that child, but to the body. So that what I find is I'll get an adult now that's very sensitive, right? They can't take supplements very long without having a reaction. They can't take medication. Their foods are off. They can only do small amounts of anything. That's because the body's kind of, I don't trust you. I don't trust you in what you're eating or what you're taking or what you're thinking or any of that. So the Ho'opono starts to align you more with your choices that you make. And when the body starts to speak to you, like, don't drink the cup of coffee. I would like a glass of water, right? Because you're looking at, oh, coffee. Oh, here's my addiction to coffee, but my body really wants the water. What do you choose? Right? Because now you got this child that says, I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to accept all your apologies, but are you willing to listen to me?
Hmm.
On the body level. What do I want to eat? What are you feeding me? How are you nurturing me? It's important to do that. So I think that is one thing that I noticed is that there's more the body speaking out in a way. Maybe it's always been there, but I think that more people are in tuned or aware of their health and leaning more towards what can I do organically as opposed to what is the medical profession telling me that is my limit.
Yeah. I see it from the pediatric end as well as the adult end, but there are many more children now being born even right out of the womb with cow milk protein intolerance, where they'll get, blood in the stool. And yeah, and it's been a known diagnosis for many, many, many years before I started practicing, for sure. But it just seemed more common nowadays, and then also more allergies and various intolerances. And I think, well, there is this aspect that you mention of the body consciousness no longer trusting you. But in children, it must go beyond going back to lifetimes again, right?
Yeah,
Or timelines. There's something that's coming in because we're not finding it necessarily. It's not like a genetic issue.
right.
But you know what it is? And to some degree, it's something that is being passed on from mother or father to child, but not in a gene, more like epigenetic, like that
Yep.
sensitivity has been turned on already in the parents and maybe even in the grandparents, and it's just escalating every generation.
Yeah.
And yeah.
There's a lot of people that, and this is even timelines generationally, things that you carry that may not even be yours that will show up, right? So I think that's what you're talking about. And especially children, they're like little sponges. And so they can, if a child is sick, I know that many therapists and whatever will say, what's going on with them,
Mhm.
because they're just picking that up and they don't know how to deal with it. So they get a bellyache or they get this or they get that. Um, But yeah, we do pick up a lot and it isn't, but I think kids also, if you're noticing that they're coming in as somewhat more resilient. I mean, our evolution with how our perception or our technology, how we embrace technology, these kids are coming in a lot more ahead than where parents are at this point. And we need to honor that because I think that they do come in with a different energy. They do come in with a different possibility of where they could lead mankind. And we need to listen to that and not use the old ways of how we would, you're just going to cry it out when you're, 2 weeks old because that's what Dr. whatever his name was says, where you're more loving and nurturing and you're not listening to what other people are saying. You're really in your heart with your child
Mhm.
and you're giving them what they need and know they're not gonna get spoiled until you spoil them much later in life, but it's that place that I think is changing and needs to change. It needed to change.
Mhm. Yeah. It's not easy being a parent.
Are you a parent?
Yep. Of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. 10, not 10, two boys, 12 and 15.
Oh, yeah, good ages,
Yeah, good ages.
independence.
Getting there,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's always the second guessing that a parent goes through, and yeah, it's a learning no matter how much you think that you know and how much you want to do it right, you'll always be able to look back and say, "Oh, I could have done it better." And it's just, you have to give yourself a pat and just say, "It's okay."
You do. I think that's one of the biggest things for people in general is, as you get older and you look back and you go, God, who was that at 20 or 21? Like those decisions were just horrible, not only for me, but for other people, or I could have done so much better. Why was I that way with my kids? And I could have done this or that. It is all about forgiveness. And I think that's the hardest person to forgive is yourself,
Yeah.
you know, much
Yeah.
easier to do it with somebody else, but forgiving self is a little tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Not judging it too harshly. Yeah. Anyway, so we're nearing the end of our conversation. Was there anything that you would like additionally to share with the audience?
Well, that motto that I go by, you know more than you know, is really true. Like, don't just assume that you have got it all ironed out, of who you are or where you're going. There's always more, and we're all multidimensional. You don't have to believe it. but we all are. And so we have these layers of ourselves, not just in this lifetime and possibly other lifetimes, past and future. So getting to know yourself, the darker side is really important, not just feeling that, oh, I don't need to go there. I don't need to know about, how maybe you were even, an abuser in some way with somebody, but it's like to take a look at what makes you function. Where was that coming from? And go deeply within yourself. And I do run once a month. It's called Cosmic Travelers. And what we do is we bring in the evolves. And so people get a personal, like they get a number. And so whatever's coming up, they're assigned something to do for themselves that month. Plus, we work on cosmic stuff that is happening on the planet to help clear things and move things along. And they can find me on soulunion.com.
Great. Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
yeah, this is a very pleasant and interesting conversation. Yeah, there's a lot of questions actually that I would still ask you about the whole galactic history or cosmic history, and that would end up in a whole different episode, I think.
I think it would, Elizabeth. We'd go down the rabbit hole and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
thanks to the audience. If you enjoyed this content, please share it, give it a like, and subscribe. Thanks again.